podcast had a guest on it, and she did it.
Cool.
So that was fun.
Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So this whole concept to me, look good and feel good to do good. There's like an inner demon within me, and I'm going to call it that, that says, how vain, right? How vain. And in reality, though, vanity, no, this is about diving into the divinity within us, like recognizing who we are and appreciating that. And as I studied your message out, and I thought and meditated more and more on, like, how do we get this concept across? How do I get this concept across to people? How am I receiving this? Vanity is about like changing your image, right? Becoming something that you're not, in the process of like dealing with maybe your appearance, and also how you feel. You want bigger muscles, against the fact that it might be hurting your health to go to the extreme of size that somebody wants. That's me, is vanity. What you're teaching people to do is to learn to improve their health and appreciate their authenticity for like who they are, what they look like. And I just love it. I was like, this is awesome. And you're doing that for veterans, people who've served us. So one, thank you for your service, and thank you for what you're doing. Like, do you mind just diving into that concept a little bit, the vanity versus the being able to be confident in who you are?
Sure. Absolutely. Thanks first and foremost for having me on the podcast, Jackson. This is a real hoot. It's not often I get to be on the other side, right? So fun. This is going to be a real treat. So to answer your question, let me start with a quote. It's my favorite quote. It's actually on my Facebook profile, and I've got a t-shirt with it as well. I like it so much. It's from Socrates. So it goes way back. It says, no citizen has a right to be an amateur in the matter of physical training. What a disgrace it is for a man to grow old without ever seeing the beauty and strength of which his body is capable. So for me, it comes down to responsibility. Looking good is a reflection of how responsible you are. If you physically look good, you're lean, you're strong, you've got muscles, it means you're able to dedicate time for yourself to stay fit. But when I see a fit dad, especially a fit veteran, I know they're getting after something. And that's what I want to convey. In order for you to get after something bigger than yourself, the mind and the body are not two separate entities. They are the same. And so, yeah, we can work on our mental health. Yeah, we can work on being more present. These are all important things. But for me, and from what I've learned over the last few years, that comes after your body. Your body needs to be doing hard things. It needs to be healthy. And once you have that as a foundation, the mind starts to follow the body. And that's where I think fitness and health has a critical component, especially for veteran health, that's being completely overlooked, and where I'm hoping to fill the gap.
Dave, I cannot personally thank you enough. You can spew that.
I almost been my God. I wasn't expecting that.
I'm going to dive into this like big. It is very hard to shift my paradigm. I'm a very self-assured individual, well-studied. I really know what I know. I believe it. And that doesn't make me hard-headed or stubborn. It means like, you got to have something big. And you just did that with the Socrates quote, in a number of ways. The aspect that he talks about us, not as individuals, but as citizens, right? As an individual, I might have, but I was like, dang, like that's forceful. That's like, who are you to tell me I don't have the right? But then, like, I can't argue with the fact that I have a civic duty as a global citizen and as a American citizen, right? As a community member locally, like, I have to step up. Thank you. I can't argue with that.
You're welcome.
No, hey, I can't. I argue myself about that, and you just shifted something in my paradigm that says, damn, he's right. I owe this, not just to myself. It's not about the selfish aspects. It's about me being a representation to others. It's about me being as capable as possible for those that I serve. Like, well, you said it, not me. I get to color commentate.
Okay. Well, it's hard to argue with a 2,000-year-old Greek philosopher.
Right.
I like making arguments that are basically unwinnable. So that's why I use it, and it's so powerful. And it was the Greeks that were really influential in ensuring that fitness was just part of your lifestyle. And if you look at the old statues of any of the Greek philosophers, they were all jacked. They were all ripped.
Yeah.
Couldn't be a
So
coincidence.
this dad bod's going to be shifting, and you get the credit for it. Seriously, thank you. I'll get to be the plus to the veterans that you help, since I did not serve in that capacity. So with that said, let's dive into 3 resources as well. Socrates is one of them. We caught that now, but 3 other resources if you want to, that can help visionaries stay dedicated to their process of fulfilling their visions or discover how to do it.
Yeah. Okay. So like I said, off camera, I've got a lot. So for me, I needed a lot of help, especially when it came to accepting the fact that I was going to become an entrepreneur and I had a vision. To me, the term visionary it didn't really sink in well with me. It just had a negative connotation in my mind.
Right.
Until I accepted the fact that, no, I have a different vision. I have a vision that actually I don't know anybody else that has this vision, and I've yet to find one as well thought out. And that's not to toot my own horn. It's just I've spent a lot of years thinking about this and building. So in terms of resources, I guess we can go back kind of to the start. It was just change my mindset. So my mindset had to change. And it may sound kind of cliche, but it was the book, The 4-Hour Workweek.
Yeah.
That completely shifted by Tim Ferriss. I was a teacher at the time. I just more or less left the military. And that book just made me realize, oh, you can do something. Oh, there you go. You got on shelf. Yeah. I mean, right. Like, I mean, in terms of the tech and everything it talks about now, it's outdated. However, the message is if you come up with a vision, which I had never done, period. So that book set me on the path of figuring out what I actually wanted to do and what actually fired me up. And I realized it isn't teaching. Although I thought it was. I thought I was going to be a high school teacher the rest of my life. So that's one thing that helped me change my mindset. Another one, relatively recent, is a book by Jocko Willink called Extreme Ownership. Yeah. So really popular dude. He's a Navy SEAL, by the way. He's got a great podcast. When I was having a really rough time, I'd just been released from the military. I was having a brutal time at work. I eventually left my career as a teacher, and I was suffering from undiagnosed post-traumatic stress. I was dealing with my injuries from service. I had 2 young children. So things were just spiraling. My one through line, my one standard every day was I would get up every morning super early, around like 4:30, 5 a.m. I would go to the basement and I would listen to Jocko Willink on my TV, and I would do some exercise. And that led me to reading his books, and his books just allowed me to get a better perspective on owning what is going on. So I was putting blame on the military. I was putting blame on Veterans Affairs. I was putting blame on my wife. I was putting blame on everybody else except myself for the condition I was in. That book, called Extreme Ownership, said, you got to stop that. You're the one that is responsible. So it shifted me away from a victim mentality to a very engaged, responsible mentality. And that completely changed my frame of reference. And so it translates into my business too. If something's not going well, there's not many people in my business. So therefore, I'm the problem. So if marketing's not good, marketing department, hey, you got to pick up your game.
That's right.
So that was a really important resource, and it's an excellent book. Very well written. And then I would say, lastly, this is more, I guess, nuts and bolts, but my favorite business influencer right now is Alex Hormozy. And
man, he's good.
Yeah, so you're tracking. You know who I'm talking about. Yeah, I'm a huge fanboy. So I've got the hat.
We'll compete on that.
I got the acquisition.com hat. Have you got one?
Well,
come on, Jackson. Oh, come on. I should have it. I don't have it here, unfortunately.
I need the vanity metric. I need that too. I've got the Audible, and he wrote about my first startup in his book. So That's cool.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't know that. That's really cool.
Mic
So
drop.
yeah, no kidding. So acquisition.com is his website. It's got and his philosophy is, I want to make my free content so good that you don't have to go out and buy any other courses until you get to your $1 million in profit valuation. And then you can be one of our portfolio companies. I love that model. And that's ultimately what I'm aiming at in terms of what I want to do. I want to provide so much value for the veteran population in terms of fitness and health that they don't have to go anywhere else. So his 2 books, I mean, the most recent one I've got right here, $100 million leads, huge. $100 million offers. Before that, I think I've read it 4 or 5 times already. Completely changed everything about my business. So, some are more mindset, some are more tactical, but those would definitely be my favorite 3 right now.
Yeah, I love that, and I love the authenticity from what you can see. You can't ever claim that somebody's perfect or that we know all their angles, but there's so many little instinctive things that Alex does that tells you he is sharing with the world, like exactly what he's up to and how he's up to it, and why he's doing it the way he's doing it. It's rare to find that type of leadership in the private sector. And John Lee Dumas is another good example of that with Entrepreneur Fire and posting his earning reports. It's just like, man, you got to love that they're willing to do that. And I think even if John had a bad month, I think he would share it. He hasn't had a bad month in forever. Like, he's king of the world on podcasting, but he from what I learned about him behind the scenes, he is that type of leader. And Alex, same thing, talking about podcasts right when we launched ours. And I watched a 45-minute video I didn't have time for, like 3 a.m. because it was him. And he's talking about his strategy. And when he hired his podcaster team, he told them, like, they wanted to know how they could like keep the job, because everybody in marketing and growth is constantly worried about getting fired, because that's what business owners do. And so there's this like yes man culture that's horrible. And he's like, all right, just stop. He's like, I'm going to do this for 10 years and I'm just going to go. I don't care about the beginning metrics. We're going to do it the right way. And we're just going to keep optimizing. And if it doesn't work in 10 years, we'll shut it down. But like, you're good with me for 10 years, be responsible. I'm sure there's some values in there, but that growth mentality right there is what, hook, line, and sinkers me to Alex, where I'm like, yeah, he understands the law of the harvest. He appreciates it and builds with it. So we're going to be right back, everybody. We're going to jump into a little bit of a break. I'm going to get my bearings on some of the accolades of Dave Morrow. We're going to be talking a little bit about his podcast as well, the Hard to Kill podcast. And of course, we're going to be talking about looking good, feeling good, and ultimately going about doing good, and how he serves veterans. And now, of course, through our medium beyond. So we're back. All right, welcome in to Vision Pros Live with Jackson Callum. I'm your show host. We will be doing interviews for visionary entrepreneurs and guest leaders who are building fantastic visions out there. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Vision Pros Live. I'm your show host, Jackson Callum, founder and CEO of First Class Business. It would really help as a podcaster if I did not have a Zoom recording processing in the background while trying to host the show. So lesson learned, turn that off. Thanks for everybody's patience. A little bit of technical glitch there. And just know that if you're in the beginning stages of what you're doing, or even at the top of the mountain, and you stumble and fall, welcome to life. That's part of growth. So own it, keep going, be awesome. We're going to talk about the sponsors, of course, real quick, give you some additional resources that we promote that we're excited about. In this case, one's a client and one is not. Both were on this show. The Law Spot with Melissa Gray. I didn't get to do the pre-show with her. And so when I saw that I had an attorney coming on my stage, I was like, oh no. I don't want some pretentious person who's going to condescend to everybody. And I didn't get that. I got an actual human being who happens to be a rock star attorney as well, who knows that law doesn't have to be complicated for business owners. I've been looking for somebody like her for years now. Granted, passively, I do take more risks than most people when it comes to my own well-being in business. I do like to pioneer certain things. That said, I understand very well the value of being a wise steward of what it is you're doing. She is ultimately our chief legal officer at this point, as well as helping us understand how to help prepare better the business owners who are also trying to build out their legacies. Keep in mind, when I was at Restaurant Connect, somebody patented, I'm sorry, not patented, sorry. Somebody trademarked our business because they found out we had it too, even though they knew we had it first. We had a $20,000 trademark battle that crushed us and hurt us a lot as a startup. In addition to that, Apple patented our software while I was there too. And I was like, what the heck do we do with this? Thank goodness we did not waste another $20,000 on a futile lawsuit against Apple. My point is, if you don't have somebody on legal counsel or retainer right now, and you're in the process of discovering that, consider her in your lineup because she's an absolute joy to talk to. She'll help you understand what you're doing. And I absolutely love working with her. In addition to the Law Spot, you got Recovery Unplugged. Andrew Sosin came on the show. I did get to do the pre-show. I just wanted to talk to him for days on end, having talked to him and seen what he's up to, helping people with drug and alcohol addiction treatment and treatment beyond that. There's so many addictions we take for granted to our own dismay, whether that be Netflix, whether that be some app that you're addicted to and play. Sorry, maybe you're not addicted. Maybe just play that app a lot. You're addicted, right? We're distracting ourselves from being our best selves. And usually because we're in an environment where we don't feel like we belong. That's my one intuition from that, based on a great TED talk called Everything We Know About Addiction is Wrong. What's really cool about Andrew is he's got over 400 team members now on this, and he's in several different cities, and COVID pushed them online. So now they create a virtual space to be able to help people come in and connect with it. He's attended Tony Robbins conference 22 years in a row as well. And he was recently in a mastermind on in the Virgin Islands with Richard Branson and who was it? Robert Kiyosaki of Rich Dad Poor Dad. So I just have absolute, I'm just amazed with everything I've learned about Andrew. Now I know a lot of you may have an addiction or may not, but you know somebody who does. And this is a great resource that has a 24/7 hotline too to help out. So if we can help even one person with that, reverse their life, change it, and come back to a life well lived, then this is absolutely worth having Andrew's company, Recovery Unplugged, on there. And if you're a musician, you'll really love what they're up to. The Water Project. I don't have my water bottle on me. I like to have it for this, but the Water Project is my cause of choice to constantly triumph. I really love what they do. I love the transparency they have around it. There are millions of people in this world who don't have easy access to water. I can run downstairs and get it in less than 15 seconds. And I take that for granted every day. I don't want to. I want to remember there's millions of people who don't have that. It's our opportunity to be able to help people in countries like Africa. What the Water Project does is they allow you to see, like a crowdfunding, you can see what you're contributing to, which community, how many people are going to be affected by it. You can see what they're building, and you get to see the outcome when you contribute to that community. They track everything with social posts. I just thought that was brilliant and genius when I saw it several years ago. And when I see these kids smile and celebrate water like my own children celebrate Christmas Day, it simultaneously breaks my heart, but allows me to think, you know what? I can have that type of impact on somebody. And maybe financially we can't. Maybe COVID's hit hard. You don't have the ability to give $5. My request is that you either rock the mic, or you simply share that message, or maybe you tag somebody right now who you're thinking of who might be able to care about that, might be willing to give back to it. You might end up inspiring somebody who ends up giving $100,000. You never know, but the generational impact that would have on thousands of people does so much good for this world. And so I hope you join me on that. If you have another cause that you would rather see us talk about and contribute to, then by all means, don't hesitate to drop that in the comments as well. It's not a competition. We can give abundantly. There's 8 billion people out there who need our help. And I hope that we do a little bit to inspire you to join us in the process of trying to do just that. So we got Dave Morrow coming on stage with me. He just dropped some wisdom for those of you who weren't tuned in earlier. I highly recommend going back to that. The starting story with him was absolutely awesome. He's helping 100,000 veterans lose 2 million pounds. So somebody could boil him down to, oh, he's just another fitness coach. Not with the philosophies that I just heard, not with what I see. He's also got his podcast, the Hard to Kill podcast. Again, maybe it's about personal training. I think he's got some interviews on there. If he doesn't, well, yeah, I see Adam Sheridan on there, in fact. And I'm excited to dive in and learn more about that resource. You don't need to know everything about somebody in order to bring them on your stage, or in order to engage and start building a holistic relationship. One, I think you do need to be in a safe environment. We're podcasting from 2 different parts of the world. I think I'm safe with Dave. 2, there's enough presence for what he's built to show that he is very much on an Alex Hormozi pathway. He's on a Tim Ferriss pathway. He's on I don't know if it's a Bill Gates pathway yet, but what he's up to and how well he's shaking his head no, regardless, he's maximizing his opportunity to help and do a civic duty to help all of us create an even better world. And I've just been super impressed with the few minutes I've had. So let's dive in without further ado. Dave, thanks for the honor of being on Vision Pros Live. I appreciate it, man.
Hey, it's really cool to be here. I'll be honest, and we have a common vision in terms of the water project. Actually, I just
Yeah.
pulled up my old fundraiser I did with my kids. I used to have a water project fundraiser every year at the high school I used to teach at. It's called Mr. Morrow's Water Warriors. It's still there. It's still archived. So we used to
Yes.
raise a few $100 every year. It's a project that's dear to my heart too. So it's really cool.
Oh man, that's awesome. That is great to hear. Man, just you're making the bromance grow a little too fast. So all right, Dave. So Dave, let's dive in right away. What's your vision for those that you serve? I summarized some of it. I'd love to hear more details.
Well, as you put just so eloquently, yes, I'm trying to help 100,000 veterans lose 2 million pounds. And the reason for that is because I believe that this new cohort of veterans that fought the global war on terror is the next greatest generation. The only issue is that we're suffering from a lot of health issues. One of them is obesity. We're more obese than the general population, to the tune of about 44% of us are either overweight or obese. So, in order to tackle that serious health condition, which is obesity, we need to come up with better solutions. And those solutions require coaches like myself. And so I've put here that I'm the engineer of the veteran renaissance. That was actually a term that came up on one of my podcasts, on the Hard to Kill podcast, where I feel that there's this new resurgence of creativity. And I believe it's because it's been about 10 years since the majority of the fighting ended during the global war on terror. And we're more or less healed up or getting close enough to healing up. And I'm seeing it. I'm seeing breakthroughs in psychedelic treatments, so plant medicine, seeing breakthroughs in terms of business creation. We are a large group of human beings that have a unique experience that needs to be shared. And much like the first greatest generation that came back from the Second World War, they got after it right away. They got right back into the workforce and they built the greatest civilization in human history.
Mhm.
We don't have the same numbers, but we're getting back on our feet. And I want to be part of the solution to help them all thrive, because I got to benefit from physical fitness because I was in a bad way. I had to figure it out on myself. I don't want other veterans to have to do that on their own. So I want them to learn how to reduce the amount of pain that they're in. I want them to listen to some of the most amazing influencers, doctors the planet has to offer on my podcast for free. So these are the things that I want to convey as strongly as possible, so that this group of individuals, and there's about 22 million in the United States and about 600,000 in Canada, and then globally, I don't quite know the numbers, but I'm sure there's probably a few more million. How do we unite our efforts and bring our commonalities, which was war, to the point where we can share our experiences, grow, thrive, and have a massive impact in our communities and our countries? And that's my ultimate vision moving forward.
I love that. That I love that you brought up Alex Hermosi too, and like how his acquisitions company is going about it. I saw his Facebook ad the other day talking about. I believe the ad talked about buying your business, but I was like, model that. Like that is a fantastic message, and the way he was going about it, I was like, this is so cool. You remind me of like the American version of what we're building too at First Class Business. I don't know if you probably don't know this. Our vision, my vision, is to bridge the economic gap between North America and South America. How do we do that? Empowering Latinos with work opportunities and helping them understand the value of the fact that there is a LinkedIn out there. There is a Canva out there. There's a Fiverr. There's an Upwork. Most
Mhm.
Latinos in foreign countries that I've talked to, all the research we've done in the last 14 years, they don't even know that those programs exist. That there is an opportunity to get hired in those capacities. So but I see it as the same exact thing. When you have people who, in the case of war, they're coming back and they've got all this energy, they got all this strength. And now some of them might not know how to channel that towards a meaningful purpose, right? Towards an opportunity of their own. You're carrying that torch, leading the way. I'm seeing the same thing in terms of Latinos, where if they've never been given an opportunity to exercise their skill sets that they've learned by using social media, and really sharing posts and things that are funny and all of that, and realizing, wow, they're digital marketers at heart. They just don't get paid to do it, and they don't know that they could get paid to do it. And until they know it, they can't believe it. Then once they believe it, we can inspire them on a path to show them that they're actually quite good they can be quite good at doing that. So anyway, that's my side of it. But it just, I love what you're doing because I don't have the time and strength to do both, right? Somebody's got to take care of home base. While I'm out there, and I say somebody, all you visionaries listening, we're not excluding you. I'm including you on that. We all can step up back to that civic duty that Socrates talked about. We have an opportunity to do that. So on the personal side, shifting gears away from business a little bit, what is your personal vision, Dave?
It's centered around wealth and abundance. Truly. I see it much differently now than when I was a bit younger too. Whereas I would see wealth as fat stacks of cash. Now I'm seeing the different aspects of wealth. Being healthy is, to me, that is the greatest, I guess, if you want to call it, force multiplier you could possibly have. Because for me, health is the only thing that really matters. Because all the other things could be gone, but if you have your health, at least you have the potential to do something. And same with my kids, focusing on health, making sure that is abundant, and we work on that. So ultimately, my vision is to have a very good home life, build a very strong family unit, reunite, elements of my family. Cause I mean, families are smaller these days. I'm an only child. So, who becomes family? We can start bringing in friends to the mix and ensuring that we have a full table when we have dinners, and anchor them in ritual and some really good family values is kind of one of my main things. And I want to be able to do it all over the planet. I want to be able to travel. So part of what I'm doing is to ensure that myself, my wife, and my children can experience all the planet has to give. And that is exploring things like the pyramids and going to South America, which I haven't been to yet. And I want to touch all 7 continents because after I got back from Afghanistan, I just saw so much potential and so many experiences I could be having that if I was to continue to think small, I just wouldn't do it because I would be focused on work, pension, house, and just not enjoy life. But when I came home, I had an entirely different outlook on life because, I mean, it could have been gone in an instant over there on many occasions. So that really reframed things for me. And so I want my family to be able to experience that. And then those that are in my sphere, I want to be able to give back as much as humanly possible. And I don't want to hold back. And I feel great when I'm able to return the favor and to provide and to be there for friends and family. That just makes my days. So whether that's bringing them on trips or having nice meals, that's kind of it. I'm a simple guy. I don't need fancy things. I need experiences. And ultimately I want my family to have them too. So that's my personal vision.
I love that. That is a more holistic view of wealth than most young people consider. And at the same time, I think the younger audiences, now that they have access to the 4-hour work week, right now, they have access to people who are publicly able to display that type of a life, whether it's fabricated or it's real. It still has an influence on your decision and what you choose to pursue. And so, I'm not by any means condoning what is fabricated, but there's an influence that's there. So the older generations, a lot of them are learning from a sense of regret.
Yes.
That, man, I gave my whole career to this. Some of them live in bitterness and want to drive the younger people to do the same, because they feel it's the only way. And maybe it's part of a protection process as well, but what you stand for, what you represent, what you're doing, I mean, it aligns holistically too with what I want. Now, some of us, are also divorced. I'm twice divorced. Even though I had that centeredness on the family, it didn't work out and in either one of those occasions. But it doesn't mean that, again, those of you who are divorced out there, you can't gravitate towards having those same holistic family values and still wanting them and instilling them. The same is true of those of you who are like, wow, I can't really relate to a life like Dave talks about, it being able to travel the world and be to all 7 continents. don't give up on yourself. Consider having an open heart to those types of realities, because it is possible to overcome your circumstances. And I think part of it is the book you shared, extreme ownership, right? Having an extreme dedication. When you have an extreme dedication to good things, that's not unhealthy, right? It's extreme dedication to things that can hurt you if consumed too much of, that can end up hurting you. But there's just something about your essence, your aura, the way you're going about it, Dave, that has me say, like, yeah, man, like, thank you for rocking the mic, showing people the possibilities of this. We are going to dive into a darker subject right now, though. I'm going to switch gears completely on you. What is your worst leadership experience ever? Now, this is, I want to put a caveat on this for everybody listening. This isn't about Dave's experience. It's about him cultivating what story. It could be somebody else's story. It could be something you learned about how Hitler was doing things, etc. The point being, if we don't learn from history, it tends to repeat itself. And when we learn from somebody else's history and experience, and we apply it to our lives, like Tim Ferriss, that 4-Hour Work Week, right? We can use that to our advantage. So with that said, what's the worst leadership experience ever?
Yeah, well, I spent 15 years in the military, so I had a lot of different leadership roles and experiences. One of them is during a summer, we had a performance drill team. So drill is military marching with weapons. And so you have a lot of really interesting ones in the US. The Marine Corps one is phenomenal. Like, so we were trying to emulate that. We hadn't really done it before. So I was in charge of that team to build it out. So it was pretty cool because it was very creative. I'm a creative guy. I had a great group of troops, but we were getting run ragged. We were being tasked to do all kinds of extra stuff. My guys weren't getting enough rest. We were traveling around the country. It was getting rough. So I started getting a little bit prickly and pushing back on my leadership, saying, we're not going to do this anymore. And we'd be ordered to do some stuff. And I just said, no, we're not. And so the relationship became really contentious, to the point where I got dragged into an office. I got publicly humiliated and then fired from my job, which never happens in the military. So that was a terrible experience, because I learned pretty quickly that you can only push back so far until things go sour for you. Now, the learning experience I had from that, so the lesson learned was that I need to be a little bit better at politics. I need to be able to express my displeasure in a bit better fashion, rather than, sir, you're all effed up.
Diplomatic.
It didn't work so well.
That wasn't so diplomatic.
It wasn't so diplomatic. And to basically touch on Jocko Willink's book, Extreme Ownership, he touches on this. He goes, you're going to run into leaders that aren't the best. That's just human nature. But how do you deal with it? And how do you own it? And why is that leader treating you the way that they're treating you? What are you doing that is influencing that? Are you actively engaging in conversation? Are you creating the space for dialogue? And I realized, no, I wasn't. I was just reacting. I was getting upset, and I was reacting to the situation, rather than sitting down, crafting a plan, being like, hey, this schedule is way too much. So I learned a lot from that, because it made me realize that there's a way forward that doesn't require me to be so on the nose, and I can leverage my ability to communicate and formulate an argument, and be okay with the fact that, hey, you know what? I did what I had to do. I was the leader in this situation, and whether or not the outcome is favorable, I know I took the appropriate action in my position. And so that was the biggest lesson learned from that experience, because it was pretty rough on the ego. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I hear you. I am very familiar with, I'm a lot like Donkey from Shrek. A lot
Donkey.
like that. And so when somebody says, when Donkey tells Shrek, wow, only a true friend will say something that brutally honest. Like that. If you were to come to me as leader and you were to say that, like, man, you're really effing everything up, I would be like, oh, teach me how. Like, you're the one person who will tell me that. But the challenge of being that personality too is, if we don't get out of our own way, whether you go to realize that not everybody wants to be approached that way or likes to be approached that way. And until we learn to shift how we approach circumstances like that too. Like we continue to end up ruining relationships. So on both sides, right, there's an opportunity there. And whichever side you're on, entrepreneurs, like visionaries, it's because like you've got the opportunity to explore that for yourself, but also for those that you're serving. So thank you for sharing that as an experience.
Mm-hmm.
What's your best leadership experience ever?
Yep. Another military experience. Actually, the picture's right there. That's why I've got it there. So I don't know if you can see it that well, but that was the team that I had the honor of leading in Wales during what's called the Cambrian Patrol. This is the premier patrolling competition in NATO. So it is brutal. We trained for well over a year, selected the team, handpicked guys, and it was me and my good buddy Simon. We really, put a good training package together. We developed a team that we're still in touch today. A lot of these guys went on to have stellar careers. But the funny thing is, we weren't successful. we didn't end up finishing the patrol successfully. So although it was a failure, it was still the best leadership experience I ever had, because the amount that I learned going into it and then on the actual patrol itself, like the lessons learned were just incredible. Preparation, managing guys in very stressful situations, life-threatening situations, even really tested my ability as a leader. And although we weren't successful, I found solace in the fact that the boys were like, you did a great job, man. Like you did the best you could do. That was solid. And we're still friends to this day. If I could go back and do it again, that would be awesome. But we're a little bit older now, and I don't think it's in the cards to have non-military personnel go back and do it again. I think our post-traumatic stress from that event is strong enough either way. But the event was definitely a crucible, and just the lead up to it and everything we had to do to get that done, because it'd never been done before at my unit, and it never been done where we just had an entire team just from my regiment go over, and we planned everything and got everything executed. It was a big deal. So when I reflect back, that was by far one of the best leadership experiences I had.
I love that. And that is an emulation of, a double down on your vision of wealth, right? And those relationships that have stood the test of time because of that shared experience. I also love that it taught, it's based in what could be called a failure. At the same time, like how many of the billions of people on earth have ever even had the chance to compete on that stage in that position? And I hope Carmelo Anthony doesn't hate me for doing this. But I'm going to use him as an example in that regard. And that, I'm judging from an external perspective, but what I've seen from my basketball knowledge is in his younger years, I think he was one of the big reasons why he never actually won a championship. I thought he really got in the way of his teams with ISO basketball. And he made shifts where he's trying to get on a championship team later, and he started to move, and he was never able to make that happen. But at the same time, I read in another, I think it was in ESPN, that did a full-on article about M7, his tech company, and how, and he talked all about how his life beyond basketball, right, is way, like basketball is not it for him. Oh my gosh, like for a basketball player to claim that, the world, let's set that idea on fire. No, he didn't buy into the shut up and dribble concept. He understands his legacy beyond the game. I'm sure he knows what that legacy of a championship could do. At the same time, once more, his humility to recognize how there's a greater picture. It's not about being better than everybody else as much as being your best self. And I gained a tremendous amount of admiration for Carmelo and what his overall purpose was. And once again, I didn't make the G League. I didn't make D1 basketball. So it's easy to point fingers and say, well, that person lost, that person failed, and completely miss the opportunity to appreciate the greatness of what was done and what you guys went after. So no, I think it's a freaking championship level trophy. Like that you guys were even there. Now that's my lesson. But if there's one final lesson you could share with the world, like if this was it, today's was that opportunity, what powerful lesson can other visionaries learn from your experience?
I would say that you're never out of the fight. And if you're a visionary, you're going to be lonely. You're going to be super lonely. I've been lonely for a long time, Jackson. And it's doing things like this that I'm starting to realize, oh, staying in the fight, grinding, staying committed to what my vision is why I'm able to do these things now. Because 5 years ago, guarantee you, I wasn't on any of these podcasts. I wasn't interviewing world-renowned experts on my podcast. I wasn't talking to anybody at the government about my training programs, about incorporating them. That wasn't on the agenda. But I saw that this could happen. I literally had a vision of it. And it may sound kind of woo-woo, but it's like it's being manifested as I saw it 5 years ago, because I just never gave up. And even though last year was probably one of my roughest years in business and personally, I just kept on replaying in my head, Alex Ramosi, he's like, just stay in the game. You've got unlimited at-bats. Stay in the game. The reason why people fail at business because they just quit. Stay in. And thankfully we have access to great minds like that now for free. I can listen to that episode as many times as I want to motivate myself. I don't have to call them. I don't have to know them. I don't have to have a special subscription. It's free. So for all those visionaries out there, and again, it's still kind of awkward for me to kind of lump myself in with the visionary crew. It's just keep on taking those at bats. Keep on taking those at bats. If you believe in it, eventually it's going to happen. And you mentioned earlier, time horizons, right? Well, 10 years. And was it how's the expression goes? You overestimate what you can do in 1 year, but you underestimate what you can do in 10.
Yeah.
So I'm a long game thinker as well. I don't necessarily think things are going to happen in a year or two, but in 10 years, yeah. Is my podcast going to be very highly ranked? Absolutely. I'm not going anywhere. Is there going to be a book that I'm going to write that's going to knock it out of the park? Likely. But that might take 20 years. I don't know. But I'm not going anywhere. So if you don't like me, too bad. You're going to see a lot more of me.
That's right. Hey, man, I like what The Rock said about that. He said, some people don't like me. Some people don't have good taste. So
that's good.
Leave that right where it's at. And I'm going to come right back to your quote because, who knows? Maybe this is the last opportunity for us to talk about that too. This is a woo-woo channel. By the way, if people want to call it that, that's totally fine. Like this is all about vision, and vision is all about the abstract, and what people can't see, and our passionate dedication to it and beyond. Two things. You reminded me of the vision that I had of my daughter when she was 3 years old and she wasn't born yet. I didn't have her.
Wow.
I definitely believe and understand the value of visions and what can come forward. It was amazing to see her develop in life and to be like, whoa, this was you. Like I knew that. And two, in addition to that, never out of the fight, going to be lonely as visionary. Well, I've worked behind the scenes on projects for so many great young leaders. I'm not talking Oprah level. I'm not talking Dave Ramsey level. But I am talking Tim Ferriss level, who is on his way to that. And my job at Video Power was to help Jake recognize who's scalable and who's not. That was it. I had to make that assessment and call because we wanted these 7, 10, 30x returns. You can't do that for a brand that's not scalable. You just can't. You have to be. So I had to tell Dr. Eric Berg, your website's trash. It's garbage. I didn't tell him like that. I got a few little warm-ups in before I did, but that diplomacy thing, Dave, I'm working on it too.
Cool.
And he, as a leader, took great notes. And was excited. He was at 106,000 subscribers on YouTube. Now he's at 11 million. Yeah.
Dr. Berg is?
Yeah.
I've been watching him for a while. I didn't realize he got that big.
He was growing at about 1 million per quarter last year before, and naturally, people who grow, it's easy to shoot the bird, it's flying the highest, but I believe he's still absolutely crushing it. He was a phenomenal leader, right? You remind me of a Dr. Berg, not from your brand being a trash position, the opposite. You're like already past that stage. In addition, we were working on Johnny Dumas of Entrepreneur's Channel. his Kickstarter launch. We were working with Dan Martell on the SaaS Academy. We're working with Michael Hyatt, T. Harv Eker, Lewis Howes. And I had to call Lewis Howes' secretary and say, you got to tell him to reshoot the ad. Like, this is going to destroy his reputation. One simple adjustment in the beginning of his video was going to ruin the whole thing. And she, she's like, what? He's sick and he's flying out tomorrow. And I was like, look, if he goes on, and he says this line, and here, I'll just tell you guys what the line is. I think everybody's done like, what was the line?
Yeah, you got me on the edge of my seat.
Well, it was a skippable ad. And he says, oh, you're watching this because you're an entrepreneur. Right. And I said, no. As a prospect, I'm going to say, no, Jack A, I'm watching this because I'm trying to get to my other video. And I can't wait to skip it now. Like, who are you to assume that I'm watching your ad because you want me? And she goes, no, stop right there. I get it. Like, I'll have him reshoot it. Right. She's like, what should he say? And I said, and this was back when Jake was first person teaching everybody to say, hey, if you're not an entrepreneur, feel free to skip this ad. Respect the audience. Give them the chance to bow out. As you push them away, so to speak, or allow them the space to choose what they want to do, that'll allow them to gravitate back towards you and say, hey, wait, I am an entrepreneur. I kind of want to watch this. So that process, right, the little bitty tweaks, I didn't make Lewis Howes or Dr. Berg, neither did Jake. But we found the leaders who are emulating all the right characteristics. And so what I would say right now, and this is again for every visionary who's out there, you need a little beam me up, come and talk to me. Because I do catch the value in who people are, but you have not only all the potential, Dave, but your systems, the way that I've seen them, they're on track. They are the things that need to be done in order to scale and make the impact that you want to make. So you got a huge fan in me.
Thanks. I really appreciate that. It's been a long, hard road just to get to where this is. Yeah.
Well, you hit it, dude. You said, you're going to be lonely as a visionary, if you're a visionary. Tracy Childs was the first person to tell me that. I was at Icon for Infusionsoft, and Tracy Childs is the founder of Wishlist Member. And at the time, I didn't know that, didn't know what that was. But we ran into each other in like 3 different rooms, just like passing. It was kind of one of those like, what's up, man? Like head nod situations. And the third time we ran into each other at this restaurant, he goes, come over here, dude. Like, come talk. And so I sit down, talk to him. Wishlist Member had over 100,000 courses hosted on it. Online digital courses, right? This was back in 2015 or so, before it really all took off. And he trained Stu McLaren, who also goes out there and teaches people about courses. But Tracy said, Jackson, he said, entrepreneurship is so lonely. He's like, I love these conferences because I get to meet people like you, and we get to interact and we get to see each other. But like when we go home, it's like, I don't really relate to my neighbors. My neighbors don't really relate to me. It's like, so this is where like we pull it all together. And we talked for hours at that conference, and he became a super good friend. So you remind me of these leaders who are doing things so right. And I don't know where you're at on that path, Dave, but that's the cool thing. It's really hard to tell the difference between, is Dave Morrow, did he get started? Should I have found out about him before I found out about Tim Ferriss or not? So yeah, keep rocking it, dude. Keep being your best self.
I really appreciate that. That's huge coming from a dude like yourself. So I'm taking that to heart. Although I've had a hard time my whole life accepting compliments, I'm going to really let this one sink in because this means a lot. So I really appreciate that.
Well, that's great, man. And again, you already did something huge for me with this look good and feel good. And I hope, audience, that this did the same for you, whether it was a Socrates quote or something else. We talked about looking good and feeling good to too good. Do you have an extra 2 minutes? Let's not go too far over that, but an extra 2 minutes to explain to the audience a little bit further, like what can they do? What are some of the steps they can take to make sure that they're going about that and, with the path of least resistance? It's hard to find sometimes.
Well, you said it already, subconsciously, steps. You can literally start taking steps. And when I work with my veteran population, so I have a program, I call it the Beast. It's a fancy name, but ultimately you're going for a lot of walks. For most veterans, and I would argue most men, this is a program that's geared for men, dissolving your ego and forgetting about how cool you were in your 20s when you used to go bench press and do curls for the girls. That's going to be a hard thing for you to do, because I'm going to tell you, no, just go out for a walk for 20 minutes every day. Do it consistently for a month. That's your main mission right now. And I want you to get about 8 to 10,000 steps in. Can you do that? Cool. if you can start doing that, you're going to be more healthy than over 90% of Americans. Let me say that again. If you walk every day for 20 minutes a day, you're going to be better off than over 90% of Americans, because over 90% of Americans don't get 20 minutes of exercise bare minimum per day. And I'm just talking low intensity, steady state. That's going for a walk, walking your dog, doing gardening, no barbells, nothing. Just go for a walk. We would see a dramatic change in our society if people just spent 20 minutes every day doing that. You don't need any programs. You don't even need a coach. I'm trying to put myself out of business, guys. Put me out of business. Put all of us out of business. Just go for a walk. That's it.
I love it. I am so in line with this, and it's so validating when the guru, I'm just going to use it, right? When the person who's leading the way validates the reality of like what we want to believe or what we have believed. When I went through my first divorce, my coping mechanism was walking. You know, when I was separated from my family at that point, right? So I would walk and I would listen, and I, you know, I would get bored, but I had nothing else to do. I couldn't work 24/7, you know, and I love what I do, but again, you got to have some breaks. And I found myself listening to TED Talks.
Mhm.
I found myself listening to scriptures. I found myself listening to what's called general conference talks. Like I was filling my brain at the same time, and I'd call a family member or an old friend and just talk to them or listen to them about what's going on. And I did. I lost 40 healthy pounds. Like I got back into a much, much better shape. And before this recent spout of continuous bronchitis, I was trying to do the same again. And now over the last week and a half, I've been back to that, doing these 7-mile walks. And I got an executive assistant in the Philippines. So I use that time as well to talk to her at night and see what does she need help on, and how can we work on some training? Oh, hey, here's some sales principles, right? And we go through these deep 3-hour-long conversations where I'm walking her through all the elements of how she can help and how she can move her brand and her business forward, as well as move our brand forward. And there's lots of things that you can do besides come up with a reason not to do it, right? That is something you can choose to do as well. But 10,000 steps, you know, if I would just add 100 push-ups and 100 sit-ups to that as well per day, you know, like
Sure.
I would have a six-pack. And
Yeah.
it wouldn't be hard to do. That's what I was doing back then too, and it did get me real close.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, to add one last thing too,
Yeah,
you can see in the back here, I've got a logo here. That's an app that I'm helping build out as well, and it's for the veteran population. And it's called voluntold, because it's a term we use in the military where you get voluntold to do things. Like, hey, we need volunteers, but it's like, hey, you're doing it. We're kind of ordering you, but we can't. So you're doing it anyways. But we're voluntelling veterans to start walking again. And it's a game. So the goal is to
the
gamify
Pokemon
things.
Go for veteran health.
You got it. You read it. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And the reason for that is because if you can start that, and like an anima sano, corpore sano, kind of touching back to what we started with, a sound mind and a sound body, you can dramatically affect your neurochemistry if you just start going for a walk. And imagine it's fun, and imagine you get points, and imagine you can compete against your friends. And we're so fired up about this project, and we're hoping to have the phase 1 released by the end of this year, that this is going to be like one of those signature projects that I was so really fired up to be a part of when me and my buddy kind of came to the moment where we had the vision together. We're like, why don't we do this? We can do this. So this is kind of like our pet project, and I can't wait to have more info for everybody coming down the pipe.
Likewise, I love that. That's amazing. So I hope it was okay that I showed that and pulled that out.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Absolutely. Up on me, Dave. I will dive in.
Yeah, we're getting close. We're getting close to getting our app kind of fully built out. So we're going to start the hard marketing process very soon.
We are too at ablehealth.us. So we'll have to talk about the overlap on those, because there's some awesome opportunities. Visionaries who are listening in, we will have the action steps on the landing page, so you know what steps you can take next. Of course, you can reach out to Dave and myself at any time. You can also leave a comment if you want to ask a question there. We're happy to dive in and make sure those are attended to. Most importantly for you, though, as a visionary, I'd like to extend an invitation to click on the button at the top that says Be Our Guest. if you've got a vision that you want to get out into the world and you want to help people with, then don't hesitate to come on our stage and rock the mic with us. It doesn't matter if you're celebrity status, you're Natalie Portman, you're Jim Carrey, or you're John Doe, and you're like, man, I don't know if they would want me. Give us a shot, give us a chance to see and explore your vision. It might be the catalyst for you to take it even further, or you might just end up blessing 1 or 2 lives, and mine included. And I hope you want to do that. So feel free to like, comment, subscribe. And by the way, Jim Carrey, Natalie Portman, if you heard that, we would also love to have you on the show as well. So definitely feel free to apply. And thank you guys for joining us on the show. Take care, everybody. Thank you for being here today. I'm really happy that you tuned in to Vision Pros Live. I'm looking forward to seeing your reactions as these episodes continue to move forward. This is going to get more and more fun. We'll have more and more engagement as well. We'll invite people to participate in the show. And thank you for giving us your time and attention. Have an excellent time.